Attention listeners, AfterSight's annual hike is coming up on July 27th.
It was a really good experience for me.
Visit aftersight.org/hike and become an audio trekker today.
That hike today gave me so much courage.
Hey, you're listening to Blindsight. Let's go. Mental health isn't something to take lightly. It's time to fight. It's time to thrive. Let's do this.
Hi there. This is Bill Lundgren, your host of Blindsight. We're glad to have you on board. And today we have a really interesting program. And we also have a lot of announcements I got to get out of the way before we begin. Before I introduce our guest. First off, of course, this is May, and this program is part of the whole month of May being devoted to mental health issues for women. And also, we'll be introducing a new program in June, which is going to be on blind athletes. And I think that'll be something to really look forward to, the podcast. We have some exciting hosts, and it'll be a real interesting program. In July 27th, there is a hike, to which everybody is invited, north of Boulder, and you can get more information on our website, aftersight.org. And let's see, I think that covers everything I have to announce for the moment, except to let you know if you want to give any feedback. We have a feedback line, feedback at aftersight.org. And also, if you want to call us directly, it's 720-712-8856. So I think that's everything. And I want to welcome our guest today, Jess Davis, who is a cognitive therapy life coach. But she's also, and perfect for the subject that we have, she is a mother and a wife. And I'm assuming she gets very little sleep in order to juggle her practice and her home life as well, but she can tell us more about that. Jess, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me. I actually get a pretty decent amount of sleep, thankfully. My kids are old enough now that we're kind of past the sleepless night stage.
Good. That makes for everything a lot easier to handle, but it
sure does.
It's a lot of duties. And one of the things I understand is that you specialize in working with Christian women, but that's not your exclusive practice. But I was kind of wondering if you felt like sharing a little bit of what particularly draws you to that population.
Well, what particularly draws me to that population is that I'm part of it. And so, obviously it's really helpful when we're talking to people who are just like us. And when it comes to the helping profession, it's really nice to be able to be a few steps ahead, and kind of looking back at, previous you and what are the things that you really needed help with that you wished you had someone kind of guiding you along the way. And so I love to be that kind of person. But also I see a lot of the same issues that come up with Christian women. And so, I just wanted to really be a part of helping them navigate kind of just the craziness of life in this modern world.
And it is nice to be able to draw from your own experience when sharing with a client, because somehow it's not like some objective outsider is making some theoretical projections of what they should or should not do.
Yeah, exactly. And I also find that sometimes we have thoughts, or we're thinking or feeling a certain way about a situation, and we're just like not sure if we should say it out loud. And so, as someone who's had the experience before, I can be like, it seems like you're thinking XYZ, or it looks like you're feeling XYZ. And a lot of times that actually helps them to feel safe,
Yeah,
to be like, yeah, I actually am feeling that.
that's a biggie. Well, you do coaching, and could you give our listeners some viewpoint of what happens if they were to call you and make an appointment, as opposed to going to a therapist? And I mean, it's a form of therapy, but the traditional therapist, what some of the differences are, what you look for, and how you begin to help somebody.
Yeah. So, really, the easiest explanation of the differences between like a counselor and a coach are that counselors and therapists typically help you process the past, whereas a coach really helps you to kind of get grounded in where you are right now and then helps you to move forward. So, again, a counselor or a therapist is helping you to process. They're more equipped with modalities such as EMDR or brain spotting, some things like that. Whereas a coach, a lot of times we're the ones who are helping you set goals, get out of some negative thinking patterns, and help you to again move forward and get closer to those goals.
What do you see as some of the barriers that clients bring in from establishing their goals and following the goals? I know that every New Year's Day, people set 50 million goals that they want to achieve in the coming year, and then a month later, all those goals are out the window. What do you see, and how do you help them?
Yeah, so oftentimes people try to create too many goals at once. That's a big stumbling block, especially with that whole, the New Year's resolution thing. A lot of times we're like, okay, I'm going to change everything about my life. And it's like, your brain cannot handle that. It's too much at one time.
Right.
And so we have to kind of learn how to break things down into little bite-sized pieces. And so that's something I kind of help women do. But also our thoughts tend to get in the way, and we also don't necessarily have the best tools. And
Mm-hmm.
so part of my job as a coach is helping you to navigate your thoughts as you are creating new habits and rhythms. And so a lot of our limiting beliefs, so things that we have believed about ourselves oftentimes since childhood, they will inform what we are doing and the decisions that we're making now, whether we actually realize it or not. So a lot of times that can be really like kind of running in the background of our brain, without our like actual knowledge of it.
Right.
So for instance, maybe as a kid, you had a family member or a friend at school or a bully or something like that tell you that you're stupid, and you really internalize that. And so then all of the decisions that you make going forward are kind of informed by that belief. Now, that doesn't mean that the belief is true. It just means that it's there and it's informing what we're doing. And so a lot of times in coaching, we kind of have to dig deep to find out like, what is that limiting belief that's informing your decision making right now and keeping you from actually moving forward.
And so but you're talking not only about thought, how people are thinking, but also how they're feeling.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times, particularly as I've seen it, uh, there's a difference between men and women. Men are taught not to feel a lot of times.
Mm-hmm.
This is stereotypical, and women are much more as fortunately in touch with their emotions. But there's a kind of disconnect sometimes when somebody gets all upset about themselves or something people said about them. And as you say, they buy into it. And what do you find yourself having to teach people to begin to change that way of thinking, that negative
Yeah.
thinking about themselves, their emotional anxiety thinking about themselves?
Yeah. So, I mean, like you mentioned with men, they may be taught to stuff their emotions. It doesn't mean their emotions go away. So, cognitive behavioral therapy is all about, it's kind of like the life cycle of a thought. So, we all have thoughts, whether conscious or unconscious. Those thoughts provoke a feeling. And then from that feeling, we take action or we don't take action.
Sure. We get
And that
trapped.
kind of creates the life that we're living. And so whether you're saying the feelings out loud or not, they're still happening inside of the body. Like we can't control that.
Right. Right.
So
Yeah.
regardless of whether you're taught it or not, it is there. And so really a lot of what I do is just I help you to become more aware, because we also, just as human beings, we have anywhere from like 60 to 80,000 thoughts a day, and most of them are negative and reoccurring. Also, most of them are untrue. And so we have to get really good at being aware of our own thoughts and recognizing them, and then asking questions that help us to process through, like, is this thought really true? Is this thought helping me? Is it serving me? What is true? How can I think about this differently? How can I reframe this situation? Things like that.
Well, how do you train people to do that?
Usually with journaling. So,
Ah,
so a lot of times I'll tell people to write it down. Like you have a thought, or you have, like, let's say you have a recurring thought about something. It keeps coming up for you. It's causing all kinds of emotional distress. It's keeping you from doing the things that you want to do. So in that instance, I'm going to say, okay, we're going to grab a journal. And I actually have a journal that's called the Sound Mind Journal. So I kind of teach people how to actually do this. And I give you the questions to ask yourself. So we'll start with, what is the thought? And usually you want your thought to be kind of factual, like the sky is blue, right? So it's like, let's just say I took my kids to school and they were late getting out the door again. So the thought is, we're late every day. And then the feeling that comes up from that is frustration or anger or, irritability or whatever. And then the action that I take from that is, well, a lot of times I'm going to lash out at my kids. I'm going to yell at them. Come on, we've got to get out the door. Let's go, let's go, let's go. And that kind of causes like this domino effect for the whole day. Like it kind of messes up their day because now they have thoughts, they have feelings. Like it's like a kind of a whole mess, right? And so really what we have to do is write down, like, we're late every day. Here's the feeling. Here's the action. And then now we go through and we kind of investigate. Is this true? Are we late every single day? Well, no, we're not late every single day. How can I reframe this situation? Or is there something that I'm doing that could help us get out the door with more ease and more peace? So that's kind of how I teach, it's sort of guided journaling.
Mm-hmm. And I guess to do some of the mindful breathing techniques and so forth to let people calm down.
Yeah, exactly. Because you want to ground your body too. So if your feelings are kind of getting out of control and you're feeling, that rise in cortisol in your body, you can employ, box breathing is really easy. It's in for 4 counts, hold for 4 counts, out for 4 counts. And what that does is it actually calms down your central nervous system. And so it kind of brings you back to the like, here's what's happening right now. Everything is okay. But some other things you can do is you can kind of like, if you're not wearing shoes or something like that, you can go stand in the grass or with carpet and you can kind of wiggle your toes. You can go for a walk. All of these physical things actually kind of snap our brain back from like a really emotional state to a physical present state. And that helps us to make better decisions.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that's very difficult for many people is to, as you say, ground yourself and to look at that all or nothing thinking and find a different way of looking at themselves and looking at an action, because we get into a terrible person and no, you're not. There's one thing, and by writing it down, it makes it more concrete, I assume.
Yeah, absolutely. And it can actually help us to realize like, oh, wow, that's kind of a silly thought. Like, that's a little extreme. I'm not a terrible person. I made a mistake, like you said. But overall, like of course I'm still a good person and I have good intentions and all of that kind of stuff. So it helps us to just kind of bring awareness to the thought.
Now, I'm sure you get people saying, well, it would take too much time. I'm too busy and so forth. And which, of course, is a little bit of that all or nothing thinking.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And,
all or nothing it's kind of hard to work ourselves out of, but especially women, we struggle with the, I don't have time.
yeah.
And that one, I really challenge women in that, in like, you need to actually do a time audit. I want you to do a time audit and tell me, for real, do you really not have time, or are you using your time unwisely? So, a lot of us, we are distracted by lots of other things, or we may have kind of like this cognitive distortion about how long things actually take, which is a real thing. We think things take longer than they actually do. And so that leads us to kind of get all up in our own head and be like, well, I don't have time. I have to do this, 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 and this, and this. When really all of those things may only take you 5-10 minutes to do. And you actually have lots of hours left in your day. So that's kind of where like a time audit is helpful. So you can see, how long does this task really take me? But I also challenge people in the like, well, you can either continue to believe that you don't have time and believe that you can't take control of your thoughts and continue to live in this victim mindset, or you can make time and say that if I'm going to lead the life that I want to live, I'm going to take 5 minutes every day to do this thing to get in control of my thinking again.
One of the difficulties, and I wonder what it feels like, when you're being pulled by a spouse, being pulled by the children, pulled by expectations of everybody around you, in terms of just being able to say, I'm more important than that. And what it sounds like you're saying is take some time for yourself. And that's the thing that a lot of particularly women have trouble allowing themselves to have, or maybe I'm generalizing too much with saying that.
I don't know if it's necessarily generalizing. I think, yeah, a lot of us women struggle with that. And we tend to get really wrapped up in our role as mom. We're constantly taking care of everything in the family. We're taking care of schedules and meal planning and grocery shopping and running the
Mm-hmm.
household, and for most modern women too, we also have jobs or careers. So
Right.
we're kind of managing all of that too. Like we take on a large portion of the mental load, and it's not because men don't want to help. I think it's really important to point that out. It's not because our spouses don't want to help. I think there's just kind of this underlying thing in our society of women can do it all and have to do it all.
Right.
And so we struggle to actually sit down with our spouse and be like, okay, how are we going to divvy all of this up so that this is a little bit more of an equal load? Because especially again, if you're working, like we both have jobs, we both have these kids, we both have this house, we both, we have all these things together. So how can we manage this together better? And where do we need to delegate? Where do we need to hire some help? Where do we need to, or just ask for help from someone outside of the home?
Well, that feels like it's sometimes for some women I've known that's a heresy because they force themselves or they believe that they're supposed to do it all.
Mm-hmm.
And it must be, I don't know whether it's a relief or a scary proposition when you suggest to them, oh, you don't have to do it all.
I think it depends on the woman and what her belief is, honestly. For a lot of us, we're raised with this sort of like, battle cry of like, women can do
Yeah,
everything. And when we
right.
realize that we can't, we kind of feel like a failure. And so I
That's
think
the thing.
I think we
Moving
need to
into that
talk.
failure if they can't do everything,
Yeah,
all or
absolutely.
nothing.
Yes, exactly. And then there's shame and guilt and everything else. And then that keeps us even more likely to ask from asking for help because we feel ashamed and we feel guilty because it's like, well, I should be able to do this. Everyone has told me that I should be able to handle all of this and manage everything. And because I am woman, hear me roar. I should be able to do it all.
Right. Yeah,
But
and to admit that there are limitations and in fact even more freeing is to say I don't have to do it all.
absolutely. And once you can get to that place of actually, I don't have to do it all. And on top of that, it actually is healthier for everyone in the family if I don't. So, for
What a
me,
novel idea.
I have two kids. I have a son who's about to turn 13 and a daughter who just turned 9. They are at a stage in life where they need to take part in household duties. They need to be a part of the household and taking on some of those jobs so that they can learn this is how we manage a household. This is how we take care of ourselves as humans. And also, this is how we take care of each other as a family. So it's not all on mom. It's not mom's job to clean the entire house. It's not mom's job to cook every single meal. It's not mom's job to do the dishes every single day, twice a day. Everybody pitches in. And that is teaching them good lessons for just how to be a productive member of society.
One of the things as I listen to that scenario is you also as a mom have to be okay if in the learning process the kids don't do it right.
Yeah, that's definitely a big one. We have to let go of our own expectations and our, perfectionism and just the feeling of like, well, my house needs to be, you know, company ready at every second. Everything has to be in
Right.
a specific spot and it has to look perfect. And, you know, I really had to learn that, especially with having my kids learn how to clean a bathroom. Because when I clean a bathroom, I will thoroughly clean the toilet, but kids don't do that. Like, kids don't know how to do that. And so you do have to get to this
Oh,
place where it's
yuck,
like,
they would say.
yeah, it's like they're learning, and like the fact that they're doing it is enough. It's not about getting them to do it perfectly or even doing it your way. It's just the act of doing it.
Mm-hmm. And you giving up the expectation it has to be done perfectly, which means you have to do it. And just say, okay, it's not that's how they learn.
Yeah, exactly.
And,
And one way I've learned to kind of combat that for myself is we kind of rotate. So it's not like I have one child who cleans the same thing every single week. It's like, the kids may clean the main floor bathroom one week, and then the following week, I'm the one that cleans it. And then the following week, a kid, and then the following week, dad,
right. Mm-hmm.
So we kind of rotate. So like the bathroom gets clean, we have to be okay with like some of those weeks the bathroom isn't as clean.
Sure.
That sort of thing.
So what you're talking about is being creative in how things get done.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
That's great. I understand that you have a lot of resources available for people who are interested in what you've been talking about today. How would they? And in fact, in addition to everything else you do, you have a website now?
I do have a website. It's called steadfastlifestyleco.com. And so there's lots of resources on there. There is that free Sound Mind journal that you can grab. I also have a blog with just lots of helpful blogs, and some of it is on mental emotional health. Some of it is, there's a few recipes tossed in there. So it's kind of like all encompassing for women. But I also have a course that is self-guided, and it's geared toward the woman who's wanting to learn about her identity in Christ, how she's uniquely wired and gifted, how to create a vision for her future. I teach her about personality types, strengths, and how to take her thoughts captive, which is that cognitive behavioral therapy, sound mind thing that I was talking about. But I also teach her how to implement habits and rhythms to help her become the woman God created her to be. So that course is geared towards Christian women, or even women who are maybe curious about what does it look like to be a Christian woman? Like, what does it look like to have an identity in Christ? So that's really what that course is geared towards. And it's a great starting point for someone who maybe isn't sure if coaching is for them yet, or maybe they're new to the coaching world and they're kind of just wanting to learn a little bit more about it. You kind of get a good sense of what coaching is like throughout that course. But it's all self-guided, and you can do it as quickly or, as long as you would like.
Now, is this print edition, or is this available to be downloaded on your computer so that someone who is blind would be able to easily access it?
Yeah, so it's right there on the website, and basically they just kind of create a login, and so each lesson actually has a video, so you could listen in. Each video lesson most of them are 6 minutes or less, and so yeah, it's right there on your computer, and so if something you have a program that recites things for you, you shouldn't be able to have any trouble with that. But definitely email me if there's something that I need to add to my website to make that more accessible.
That's great. That's great. And that the resources then reinforce what you work with a particular client.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, do you see any other the things we haven't touched on in terms of helping women to negotiate life?
Really, I just want to offer encouragement that motherhood is only one of your life assignments. It's not the only assignment. You're created and gifted for so much more. And so I just want to encourage moms, don't stop pursuing your interests and don't stop pursuing personal growth because you'll end up living a more fulfilled and fruitful life, but you'll also end up inspiring your family in the process.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so you're not taking away from the family when you take away. I think this is certainly a myth that a lot of women seem to have. I'm taking away from my family if I do something for me.
Not at all. It's actually the opposite.
I think you're very right about that. But boy, that's going against a lot of conditioning that unfortunately too many women have. And if you have someone who's a woman who is physically has a physical disability, then they're already working on a low self-esteem
Yeah.
a lot of times, and they feel less than, and so they really have to. That particular population has to uh, really avail themselves of the kinds of things that you're talking about to help build their self-esteem.
Yeah, exactly. And that really is my biggest goal is helping women to build confidence and build their self-esteem. And that really does come through the work of taking your thoughts captive and doing that investigative work of where is this thought coming from? Is it even true? And kind of building your life, because even if you do have a disability, that doesn't take away from who God created you to be and the assignments that are there for you. There is so much available out there. And so, yeah, just that encouragement of like, keep pursuing that personal growth, keep pursuing, learning how to take your thoughts captive, because all of that is going to really propel you forward in life.
And that's really the job for you to feel fulfilled as well as your family. And if you don't have a family the way is still is clearer for you to feel fulfilled without meeting the other people's expectations, but meeting your expectation.
Yeah, that's really the big thing right there, is that, it's actually not our job to meet everyone else's expectation. That's their job.
You realize you just committed heresy. Yep, yep, and that's really hard for many women to accept. Yeah, and in fact, many people just feel they're okay if everybody else around them is okay with them, and that's
Yeah,
not how it is.
which that's a slippery slope to codependency.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. This has been great. I'm really glad that we had a chance to have you on the program. Can you give the audience your website address?
yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much for having me. It's been so great to chat with you. And yeah, my website is steadfastlifestyleco.com. And then you can also email me at jess@steadfastlifestyleco.com.
Super. Do you have any last thoughts you want to share with our audience?
I think again, just kind of reiterating that encouragement of motherhood is only one of your life assignments, and there's just so much for you. And so again, keep pursuing your interests, keep pursuing personal growth, and you'll again live a much more fruitful life, but also inspire your family in the process. So
Yeah, and you'll make them happier if you're okay.
yeah, absolutely.
Great. Thank you for being on the show. I hope you have a good Mother's Day, which is coming up. And so I am signing off for people. Hope you all have a good Mother's Day weekend or whatever weekend is coming up. This is Bill Lundgren from Blindsight. And remember, if you want to give us some feedback, it's feedback@aftersight.org or by telephone, our feedback line, 720-712-8856. Thank you.